I set up on Denison Street every Friday at 2:30. Same corner, same folding stool, same battered case laid open on the pavement with a few dollars already inside, not because I needed the priming, but because Cora put them there when she was 6 years old and decided it looked lonely without them. She's 10 now. She doesn't put the dollars in anymore, but I still leave them. Some things you keep doing because they belong to someone you love. Cora takes the window table at Harlan's Café while I play. She does her reading there. She always has something thick going, library binding, the kind of book that takes both hands to hold open. She watches me over the top of it. I can see her through the glass even when I'm not looking. I always know where she is. The November air had that particular bite to it, the kind that clears the downtown sidewalk down to the people who actually have somewhere to be. The lunch crowd was gone. The plaza had that wide, quiet feel I like, just the fountain at the far end still running, a few pigeons negotiating over a pretzel crust, the cold light coming flat off the glass storefronts. I was tuning the low E when she walked past. I noticed her the way you notice someone who moves like the world is already arranged to accommodate them. Long coat, dark and fitted, phone raised to one ear, the other ear half covered by wireless buds, a woman operating at a frequency the rest of Denison Street wasn't broadcasting on. 2 people followed behind her with laptops under their arms. She didn't glance at me. What she did do was glance at my case. She stopped mid-sentence. Pointed at it with 2 fingers, the way you'd indicate a minor obstacle to be cleared. "You're blocking the entrance," she said. Not unkind. Just clipped. The tone of someone who has said the same thing to 100 things that were in her way. "I'm 3 feet from the entrance," I said. She was already moving again. Phone back to her ear. Her people followed. The door to Harlan swung shut behind them. I watched the door for a second. Then I started to play. I didn't plan what I played. I never do on Fridays. I let my hands find the thing they want, and most Fridays they find something mid-tempo and comfortable, the kind of thing that makes people slow down without knowing why they've slowed down. But that afternoon my hands went somewhere else. They went to the old one. The one I wrote in the apartment above the repair shop, 3 winters after my wife died, when Cora was still small enough to sleep through anything and I'd sit at the kitchen table with the guitar in my lap and just try to get the grief out of me and onto something that wasn't her. I called it Small Hours because that's when I wrote it. The hours between 2 and 4 in the morning when the world is thin and honest and you can't pretend you're fine. It's a quiet piece. No flash to it. It opens on a single sustained note and then builds through a chord sequence I'd never heard anywhere before, I still haven't, and it resolves in a place that feels both sad and relieved, the way you feel after a good cry when you've been putting it off for weeks. The first time I played it all the way through, Cora padded in from her bedroom, 4 years old, sock feet on the kitchen linoleum, and she stood in the doorway and listened without saying a word. When I finished she asked me to play it again. I played it again. And again. I played it 4 times that morning before she went back to bed. I wrote it down the next day. Filed the copyright. Sent a demo recording, just me and the guitar, 8 minutes, no production, to 7 labels through a music publisher friend of mine named Al Garrick who had connections I didn't. 6 came back with a polite no. 1 came back with an offer for a licensing arrangement for a compilation project they were building. The offer was modest. I took it. Cora's preschool fees were due and the shop was slow. Al told me later the label had run with the song harder than I knew. That it had gotten picked up for a film, then a television series, then a chain of hotel background music contracts, then an adult contemporary cover that charted. That 40-some recording artists had since recorded their own versions. That the royalty stream, which Al managed with the small percentage we'd agreed on, had been depositing into a quiet account every quarter for 11 years. Al called me every time a new cover dropped. He'd lead with some number, streaming figures, download counts, licensing projections, and I'd listen and say thank you and then ask how the kids were doing, because Al has 3 and they're always getting into something. He always laughed at that. He thought I was the strangest client he'd ever had. I told him strange was another word for content. I knew about the money. I didn't think much about the label. My name is on the copyright page. My face isn't anywhere. I played through Small Hours once, slowly, and then I played it again. By the second pass, a woman in a red coat had stopped on the far side of the plaza. She stood perfectly still with her grocery bag hanging from both hands, the way people stand when they've forgotten they're standing somewhere. A man in a contractor's vest paused near the fountain, coffee cup raised to his lips and then not. Just held there. An older couple going into the dry cleaners next door didn't go in. They stood on the step and listened. I kept playing. I'd learned a long time ago that a song does its own work if you let it. You don't perform it at people. You just play it honest, and either it reaches them or it doesn't. Small Hours always reaches them. I don't fully understand why. It doesn't have a hook in the commercial sense, no chorus, no climax, no resolution that feels like a win. What it has is an honesty about sitting in the dark and not knowing yet if you're going to be all right. I think people recognize that. I think most people have spent a night in that particular dark and been grateful, eventually, that they came out the other side. Cora would tell you I'm overthinking it. She'd say it just sounds like Dad. She's not wrong. Inside Harlan's, through the glass, I could see Cora had set her book down. She was watching with her chin propped in her hand, the way she does when she thinks I don't know she's listening. I do know. I always know. I don't know exactly when the woman in the long coat came back to the window. I know she was there before I finished the second pass. I could see the shape of her through the glass, standing away from the table, away from the two people with the laptops, her phone down at her side for the first time. She had her head turned toward the street. Toward me. I finished the piece. The woman in the red coat across the plaza let out a breath. The contractor lowered his coffee. The older couple went inside, unhurried. I let the last chord fade. When I looked up, the door to Harlan's was opening. The woman in the long coat came out onto the sidewalk. She wasn't moving the way she had before, that forward-aimed certainty. She walked like someone feeling for solid ground. She stopped at the edge of the pavement. "What was that?" she said. "Something I wrote," I said. She looked at me the way people look when they're trying to place a word they know. "I've heard that before." "Probably," I said. Her hand went to her phone. She typed something. Her face changed in the way that faces change when a search comes back and says something you weren't prepared for. She read it twice. Then she looked up at me. "Russ Denny," she said. "Yes, ma'am." She took one slow step toward me. "I'm Sylvia Brand." "I know who you are," I said. "You told me to move my case." The corner of her mouth moved. Not quite a smile. Something that wanted to be one. I did. She looked back at her phone once more, at whatever the search had returned, the copyright filing, the publishing record, the licensing history, all of it in some compressed database form that probably told her more about Small Hours in 4 seconds than most people would ever want to know. Then she put the phone away. "You could have come to us," she said. "At any point. With more material." "We would have." She stopped. Reconsidered the sentence. "I would have wanted to hear it." "I know," I said. "Then why didn't you?" I didn't answer right away. I set the guitar across my knees and looked past her, through the cafe window. Cora had picked her book back up, but she was watching over the top of it the way she does, both eyes on me. "I had what I needed," I said. "The music did what I needed it to do. The money comes in every quarter. Cora's got her school fees covered and there's something set aside for when she's ready for college." I paused. The song was never about a career. It was about a hard winter and getting through it. Sylvia Brand stood there for a moment. The wind came down Denison Street and she tucked her collar up against it. "It's on a lot of people's grief playlists," she said quietly. "Al told me," I said. "I take that as a compliment." She nodded. Behind her through the glass I could see her two colleagues staring, their laptops open and forgotten, trying to work out what they were watching. "I'd like to sit with you for a minute," she said. "If that's all right." There was a bench along the cafe wall, one of those old iron ones with a wooden slat back, the paint worn silver at the armrests. She sat down at one end of it. I set the guitar back in the case and sat at the other end. We didn't talk for a bit. A delivery truck made its way up the far end of the plaza. A kid on a bicycle cut around it. The fountain kept running, indifferent to the cold. "Do you have more?" she said finally. "Some. Would you be willing to let someone hear them?" I thought about that. "Send something to Al. He knows what I'll consider." She nodded. "Fair enough." I looked at her. She was still watching the fountain, or maybe not watching it, just resting her eyes somewhere while she thought. The hard clip was gone from her now. She was just a woman sitting on a bench, slightly rearranged by a piece of music. I didn't feel triumphant about that. It was just the truth of how things go sometimes. You do the work honest and quiet, and eventually it finds the people it was meant to find. You don't rush it. You don't chase it. You trust the thing itself. "For what it's worth," she said, "it's the best song we've ever licensed." "I know," I said. Not to be arrogant. Just because Al tells me the numbers, and the numbers say so. The cafe door opened and Cora came out with her book under her arm and a hot chocolate in both hands, the careful way she carries something she doesn't want to spill. She looked at Sylvia. "Hi," she said, with the polite directness she's always had. "Hi," said Sylvia. "This is my daughter," I said. "Cora." "I'm 10, Cora added, because she is the kind of person who gives you the full information. Then she looked at me. "Are you done for today?" "Almost," I said. "Give me one more." She sat on the bench between us, which she did without any particular ceremony, as if 3 people on a bench on Denison Street was a perfectly routine arrangement. She opened her book. I picked up the guitar. I played the opening notes of Small Hours one more time, softer, the way I play it when it's just for us. Cora read without looking up. I could see her smiling at the page, though she thought I couldn't. Sylvia Brand sat very still and listened. By the end she had her hands in her coat pockets and her eyes were somewhere far off down the street, looking at something that wasn't there. I recognized that look. I'd worn it myself, that winter above the shop, when the song was still becoming itself and I didn't yet know what it was going to mean. It's the look of something finally finding its place. When the last note faded, Cora closed her book. "That's my favorite," she said. "I know, honey," I said. I latched the case. Cora handed me my jacket from the back of the bench. Sylvia Brand stood, straightened her coat, and held out her hand. I shook it. "Send something to Al," I said. "I will," she said. We walked back to the repair shop, Cora with her book, me with the guitar over my shoulder, the cold air off the plaza following us up the block. At the corner she took my free hand the way she did when she was small, without any announcement, because she wanted to. I let her. Some things you keep doing because they belong to someone you love,